Republicans racing to whip votes for President Trump's border wall.
Opponents of the wall, you never hear them say walls don't work. And there's a reason for that. They do work.
Between 2010 and 2012, there were 55,000 illegal immigrants into Israel. In 2016, the wall was up. There were 11.
A group of migrants demanding President Trump either let them into our country or pay them $50,000 just to go home.
The president's former lawyer is going to prison. Michael Cohen was sentenced to 3 years.
I don't care what network you turn on. In their minds, Trump is already going to jail now. He's going to be impeached. This is the mindset that they have.
British Prime Minister Theresa May surviving a critical no-confidence vote.
The parliamentary party does have confidence.
We now need to get on with the job of delivering Brexit for the British people and building a better future.
Vitamin Water offering $100,000 if you can give up your smartphone for a year. Could you do it? The days are going by. We are so close to Christmas. Get your shopping completed. One more weekend.
A dozen days before.
2 more weekends, right?
Yeah, 2 more weekends.
2 more weekends, yes.
Don't scare me like that.
Sorry.
I don't go shopping until Christmas Eve like Brian. Come on.
Right, absolutely. The 7-Eleven's got the best
Well,
gifts.
this is kind of the last.
Pet Boys is open till 9.
Yeah.
Or Sears, right?
Right. Going to get a cup holder? Pep Boys. There you go. Only place to go.
Anyway, thank you very much for joining us on a very busy
Thursday.
Absolutely. And you know what's going on Capitol Hill? A showdown. Republicans are racing. They're trying to whip up the votes for President Trump's border wall, but Democrats are fighting back. Mr. President, you don't have the votes.
That doesn't sound like the Democrats I know. The threat of a government shutdown now hanging in the balance.
And Griff Jenkins is live down in Washington with reaction from both sides of the aisle. Hey, Griff.
Hey guys, good morning. Yeah, that deadline is a week from tomorrow. House Republicans working on multiple fronts to try and keep the government open and to fulfill the president's request for a $5 billion border wall package. Lawmakers on the Hill are now realizing the president is very serious about this.
It looks to me like he's serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. I mean, he's not bluffing. If I were playing poker with him right now and I didn't have the cards, I'd fold.
Now, one vehicle House Republicans are crafting is a short-term spending bill. It would have the $5 billion in funding for the wall. It would fund other federal agencies into January and provide billions in aid after the wildfires in the West. Now, if they go this route, they could vote as early as today and pass with Republican-only votes, but its fate in the Senate uncertain. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer blasting again the president's wall as a campaign pledge, predicting failure.
President Trump will soon realize that his position will not result in a wall, but will result in a Trump shutdown. He seems to relish the idea, amazingly enough.
Meanwhile, less noticed, the Border Patrol's chief, Carla Provost, was on the Hill yesterday telling senators they have arrested more than 800 gang members at the border this year, an increase of more than 50% from last year, guys.
All right, Griff, we thank you very much. So ever since the president sat down with Chuck and Nancy Pelosi and Schumer in the Oval Office, and she was emphatic. Mr. President, you can't pass it out of the House. House Republican leadership, they are hell-bent on trying to figure a way to get the president his $5 billion. But, you know, there's only 8 days before a quarter of the federal government shuts down. A number of Republicans have already gone home for Christmas, and they were in no mood to stick around anyway because a lot of them lost on Election Day. So they're coming up, they've got, as Griff just detailed, those 2 options to give them the money, but still, if they pass it in the House, it's going to hit a brick wall in the Senate.
In the Senate, because they need 10 Democrats. You know that's not going to happen. It doesn't even happen with the judges.
Well, let's see.
They're loyal. They stick
Probably
together.
Not.
Well, a couple of things. Kevin McCarthy says, I'm 100% certain I could pass it. So why would he say that if he didn't have it? So there's pressure on him. But there's Republicans like Will Hurd, who's on a border state in Texas, says, yeah, I don't think a border's effective. I'm sure there's Democrats who feel it is effective, but they're not going to weigh in and get on the wrong side of the future speaker, Nancy Pelosi. So there's pressure on the Republicans to do it and prove Nancy Pelosi wrong and at least put it in the Senate where the president could say it's all on Chuck Schumer. If they don't get it to the Senate, there's a little bit of problems. Quick thing on the wall. I did not know this, but there are 82 separate cases of people who own land where the wall would go who are suing to not let the wall go there. They were suing President Bush to stop the building of the wall.
Well,
so there are certain things. In February, the president's going to start actually building brand new wall. The rest have been replaced. So that was going to start in February for last year's money. So as soon as this starts, I think he's going to need a lot of money. But right now, he hasn't been able to spend at a higher pace because it takes so long to get everything approved and done.
But just keep in mind, the president, this was one of the foundational aspects of his agenda. When he was running for president, he's going to maintain border security and build a wall. And now we've heard, it sounds like because he has made it a national security interest as well, saying it's a threat by not having the wall there, they could try to tap some money from the Pentagon. And in fact, some Democrats are talking about, as soon as we take over, we're going to write a bill to make sure that he can't do that, because he might do that before they take power.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've mentioned a lot about the wall in Israel, that walls actually do work. Go ask the folks that live in Israel. David Rubin is the former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and he says that Israel built this wall after an influx of illegals in 2017, and he said now there are no more illegals that are going across the wall. He was on Tucker last night. Listen.
Between 2010 and 2012, there were 55,000 illegal immigrants into Israel. The Israeli government made a decision that they were going to build a wall, a high-tech steel wall on the southern border. 2016, there were 11 illegal immigrants who entered Israel. And then they raised the height of the wall an additional several feet. And in 2017, there was not one illegal immigrant that made it through the southern border into Israel.
Someone should tell Senator Schumer that it works, and someone should tell Bernie Sanders that it works, because the Democrats actually do know it works. They voted for it, whether it's a fence or a wall. That was the debate. Now the debate is we should just, it's not humane to protect your own borders.
Well, he said, and Tucker asked, he said, did people call the government racist? Did they complain? Did they protest? He said, yes. He said they were going crazy. They were protesting, complaining, accusing the Israel government of racism. He said, but the fact is now nobody is complaining. Everyone is happy that we don't have illegal immigrants in Israel.
So walls work. The big question is, does the American government have an appetite to give the president the money to build what he wants?
Michael Cohen stole the headlines yesterday as he found out how long he'd spent in jail. The word is it's 3 years. Who is he? He is President Trump's lawyer. What does he know? A lot of stuff about running the Trump Organization. How much respect does he have in the Trump Organization? Not much when he was there, and almost none now. Right. And if you talk to Democrats who are anti-Trumpers, they think Michael Cohen, every word he says is to be taken without a grain of salt.
Well, you don't know what to believe, because he has lied, and he is charged with finance violations, tax evasion, and lying to Congress.
Yep. The judge yesterday said he committed a veritable smorgasbord of crimes. He's going to wind up paying $1.4 million in restitution to the IRS, $500,000 in forfeitures, and $100,000 in fines. Now, before he was sentenced, he essentially pled for mercy and told the judge that his blind loyalty led him to a path of darkness over light. Rudy Giuliani, who's one of the president's attorneys, said blind loyalty to Donald Trump? Please. Michael Cohen recorded his client, Mr. Trump, without his permission, leaked it to the press, lied to reporters, Rudy said, taped them, lied to Congress, and one group of prosecutors say he was helpful, but another group of prosecutors characterized that man right there as a pathological liar. He is not believable, Rudy says.
Well, he said that he would take a bullet for the president at one point, not supposed to release what you talked to your client about. He did that, and then in court he said it was his duty to cover up the president's dirty deeds. So what's the truth? Is he loyal? Doesn't look like it.
Well, the question is, he has a plea agreement to still cooperate with Robert Mueller's probe. But for Rush Limbaugh yesterday, he looked at this whole thing, saw the sentence, and says his usefulness is over.
So in their minds, Trump is already going to jail now. He's going to be impeached. This is the mindset that they have. They got him largely because they won the House. They've got Washington back. Now they're going to get Trump. They got Cohen. Cohen thinks he's going to become a media darling, but his usefulness just ended.
Yeah, but we're going to hear from him again. Lanny Davis, who is now apparently his former lawyer, Mr. Cohen's, said yesterday that Mr. Cohen is willing to testify before the appropriate congressional committee about Donald Trump's misconduct over the years. And that essentially is what Trey Gowdy was talking about in this soundbite.
Everything that their base wants them to pursue, everything that is calculated to disrupt the last 2 years of the Trump of this tenure in office, and they may be smart enough not to pursue impeachment, although some of them are not. It will be bitterly ironic for me to listen to Democrats clamor for the administration to be responsive when they didn't say a word for the 6 years we were trying to get information from the Obama administration.
And on the personal side, the president's got this Letitia James, the New York Attorney General-elect. She announced her plans to investigate the Trump family. David Pecker, longtime friend of the president with American media, says, I got immunity, so I'm going to talk about what went on behind the scenes with me, getting the Susan McDougal story and the Stormy Daniels story, and then killing it. So
yeah, he admitted to a non-crime. I think that's the way they described it.
In exchange for information on the setting up of the deal. But if you read Rich Lowry's column today, if you look at this thing from a political perspective, Donald Trump is not in any trouble. You're allowed to pay people off for negative stories regardless, especially if you don't use campaign funds.
Right, and that would be the president's defense. Look, this was a personal, private matter that I handled myself. It was not related to the campaign. But the other side says, look, it was to keep them quiet so that it would not ruin his chances to be president. So,
get ready, buckle up.
All right, let's do that. Jillian Mealy always buckles up, and she was set to go. You were ready to go at 5 o'clock.
Yes, I was. And I do always buckle up, by the way.
Good job.
You should.
All right, let's start with this. An international manhunt intensifies for the suspected terrorist who opened fire at a Christmas market in France. Sharif Sheikhat is accused of killing 2 people and injuring more than a dozen others. He already has 27 criminal convictions in France, Germany, and Switzerland. He fell in with Islamic radicals during a 2-year prison sentence. Sheikhat's parents and 2 brothers are in police custody. An Air National Guard contractor in serious condition after crashing off the coast of Hawaii. You can see it right here as the plane slams into the ocean. And you can also see the pilot eject just in time, parachuting to the water. The crash happened during a military exercise. Crews rescued the civilian pilot and he was rushed to the hospital. It's unclear what caused the crash. British Prime Minister Theresa May will meet with the EU leaders today after surviving a critical no-confidence vote.
I've listened to what they said. Following this ballot, we now need to get on with the job of delivering Brexit for the British people and building a better future for this country.
May's own Conservative Party forced the vote. 200 lawmakers voted to keep her, while 117 voted to oust her. May can't be challenged again for at least a year. The deadline for leaving the EU is coming up in March. That's a look at your headlines. I will send it back to you.
A lot going on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jillian.
All right, thanks, Jillian. 13 minutes after the hour. Let us in or pay us $50,000 each. That's the new demand from some caravan members at the border. Our next guest says they aren't migrants, they're extortionists.
And the First Lady, Melania Trump, opening up to Sean Hannity last night about the challenges that she faces every day in the White House.
The opportunists who are using my name or my family name to advance themselves, they're writing the history, and it's not correct.
Welcome back. Glad you're up. Let us in. Pay us $50,000 each to go home. That's the ultimatum from migrants at the border, the caravan kids, reportedly demanding reparations from the U.S. to go back to Honduras. But in the U.S., is the U.S. really to blame for their conditions at home? Let's ask Christian Whitten, former State Department advisor in the Trump and George W. Bush administrations. Chris, this takes some gall, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, these are people who propose to come to our country, theoretically become American citizens, and they're saying that America owes some sort of debt to Central America, and of course demanding $50,000 in order not to cross our border illegally, which is extortion.
They went on to say to one of these guys, it is a small sum compared to everything the United States has stolen from Honduras. What have we stolen from Honduras?
Well, we've stolen absolutely nothing from Honduras. In fact, every year we give more than $100 million in foreign aid. If you look at all of Central America, that number grows to $750 million. That's usually what the administration requests. And I think there are a lot of people who are grateful there, and I think the governments are grateful there, but a lot of these people in the caravan, who we were told are basically just down on their heels, and these poor women and children being tear gassed by Donald Trump, well, we see the reality is very different.
Yeah, so far 2,500 have applied for for humanitarian visas to stay in Mexico. 300 have been deported. 700 have returned home out of the 6,000. So we still have a huge problem. Chris, how do we get out of this? When you see Congress hopelessly deadlocked on the simplest immigration issue, where's the light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I think this is actually a winning issue for the president. What he's requested for what's left of fiscal year, the current fiscal year, is $5 billion. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, but not really if you look at the overall federal budget, which is nearly $4.5 trillion. In other words, President Trump's request is 1/10 of 1% of the entire federal budget. Of course, we spend $700 billion plus on the military, so $5 billion for a wall that would actually, as we see from Israel and other places that have border walls, really help to make America safer. I think he should just press the issue and keep pressing it until the Democrats really suffer some pain for it.
And overall, you just wonder where the end is going to be for the Central and South America. These countries are just failed states. Honduras, Nicaragua, communist run. You have El Salvador, Guatemala. You have chaos in Venezuela. And the only hope, they look at America as their only hope. And some of these people are probably great people. But somehow we got to get into these countries without our checkbooks and help them cure their own problems.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, the solution cannot be everyone moves to America and that we have to enrich these countries in order for people not to break our laws. We've given billions and billions and billions. Some foreign aid works, some does not. Sometimes it actually feeds corruption. Perhaps, we've gotten a little better about that in recent decades. But this is, a problem that ultimately is the making of the people of Central America.
Right. We'll see. It might be a winning issue for the president in the long run, but in the short run, it seems like a loss all the way around. Very frustrating. Christian Whitten, thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, 10 minutes before the bottom of the hour. The economy is booming under President Trump, but millions of people are still using welfare like Medicaid and food stamps. So why aren't those numbers dropping significantly? We'll talk about that. Plus, could you give up your smartphone for an entire year? The new contest that could pay off big time.
Here's some quick headlines for you. Mark Meadows is out of the running to become the president's next chief of staff. President Trump telling Meadows he needs him to stay in Congress to continue his work at the House Freedom Caucus as the chairman. Current chief of staff John Kelly will step down at the end of the year. And Nancy Pelosi strikes a deal with Democrats, likely securing her place as the next Speaker of the House. The California Democrat agreeing to new term limits for party leaders. Under the proposal, Democrats could serve 3 two-year terms in leadership roles with the possibility of a fourth. The agreement means that Pelosi would be Speaker until 2022 if she is voted in. Steve, down to you.
All right. Thanks, Ainsley. Despite today's booming economy, millions of Americans are still enrolled in the nation's welfare programs. Right now, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, has over 40 million people enrolled, while Medicaid has over 72 million people. Now, these aren't historic highs, but shouldn't we be seeing bigger drops as the economy improves? Here to weigh in, Brandon Tatum, the Director of Urban Engagement at Turning Point USA. He is also a former Tucson, Arizona police officer. Brandon, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on the show.
It does seem as if there is a disconnect. If the economy is booming, you would think that fewer people would be on food stamps and fewer people would need Medicaid, but that's not the case.
Well, what we're seeing is that we've created a culture of dependency on the government. The government is meant to be an assisting factor, not something or an agency that rules our lives. I mean, you could even look at the SNAP program in the title itself. It's supposed to be supplemental nutrition.
Right.
And I think people are using that as nutrition that's going to completely fill out their pantry and refrigerator. It's supposed to be supplemental, and I think we should utilize the government as such.
Well, we do need a safety net in this country. There are a lot of people who go through tough times, and they need a hand, out of the hole they're in. But there is something that is going on as well. For instance, some are suggesting that a lot of these programs are getting ripped off. Down in Louisiana, one of the legislative auditors did a test. They picked at random 100 Medicaid recipients, and they realized that 82 of them did not qualify for all the benefits they got. They're gaming the system.
Right, and this is something that conservatives are trying to counteract. I mean, we want stricter policies and stricter legislation that can get able-bodied adults to get up and work. And for the people who need it, elderly, children, and people who are having hard times, they can utilize it. But for everybody else, man, you got to get up and work. You got to get up and do your part. And this is my thing. I remember when I had my first apartment, I couldn't afford furniture.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford cable. I had to eat, eggs, and I put, some pepper jack cheese on top of it. That's what I had to do until I made more money, I had more opportunities, and I never looked to the government unless it was my last resort. And I think people have to get into that mode of not depending on the government and being self-sustainable and working hard. That's what this country was founded on, and I think some people need to get back to that.
Yeah. When I was growing up, we didn't have anything either. We wound up eating a lot of those 10 for $1 pot pies, but I digress. One of the problems, they say, in Louisiana is that people underreport their income. They're actually making more money than they say, or simply they are allowed to join Medicaid without any verification. I mean, if there are going to be government programs, there should be government standards that people should live up to so that everybody gets the same equal crack at it.
Right, and this is not something that I'm surprised at. I mean, people in general, sometimes they lack integrity. And if you're going to give them opportunities to get free money and free assistance, some people are going to take advantage of it whether they need it or not. So when you have stricter policies, it forces people to be accountable, and it forces them to only utilize the government if absolutely necessary. So I think that the conservatives are on the right side of this, and I would like to see us push for better legislation that will give us the desired outcome.
All right, let's see what happens. Brandon Tatum joining us from Phoenix. Sir, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, straight ahead, First Lady Melania Trump opening up to Sean Hannity about the challenges she faces as First Lady at the White House.
I know I will get the criticism from the public or from the media, but I will do what is right.
Also, wait till you hear what she says about opportunists. More of her exclusive interview coming up next. Plus, Judge Napolitano says there's one significant takeaway from the Michael Cohen sentencing of 3 years in jail, and he's here to tell us what it is. But first,
Not yet.
Right.
Not yet. So we just got an alert on our phones that says that...
From Howard Kurtz.
That's right, that the president has canceled the White House Christmas party for the press.
That's right. He goes on making the decades-old tradition a victim of his increasingly contentious relationship with major news organizations. They are still going to have some other parties for service members and some other selected folks, but nonetheless, the White House press party for the holidays canceled.
I think this is a non-story because there was never a party on the books. There was never a date picked for the press to go. You can't have a party and just give people a week's notice. So was there ever a press party on the books?
I was not invited to a press party.
Yeah. So I don't know anybody that was invited.
All right.
So you're saying the party that's canceled was never really...
No party.
There was never really
Never
a party. Okay, Seinfeld. No party.
No party.
All right. Meanwhile, the First Lady of the United States sat down with Sean Hannity when she was visiting.
You went to look down to check Sean Hannity's pronunciation?
No, I
What's
went
going
to. I looked down.
Come on, Sean
for the
watches.
next line.
Sean Hannity.
Exactly. No, she was visiting the George Herbert Walker Bush warship. And here's something that's really interesting. You know, in the past, she has said that some staffers in the West Wing not trustworthy and not looking out for the Trump's best interest. A lot of them are gone. But now, what is the hardest thing she's got to do these days? Listen.
I would say the opportunists who are using my name or my family name to advance themselves, from comedians to journalists to performers, book writers.
Does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt. The problem is they're writing the history, and it's not correct. I know I will get the criticism from the public or from the media, but I will do what is right and what I feel it's right for the country and for the people.
I have a prediction. If you watched the First Lady over the last 3 weeks, especially when she called out one of the national security advisors and said they need to get out of here, I think that she is going to be a force for the next 2 years. It's going to be a force for good. I think she's got the president's back. She's a very smart woman. I think she gets the job. She's fully staffed up. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of her. She interviewed with you, interviewed with ABC, sat down with Sean. I think she's going to be a big force over this year. That's my prediction. Remember this. Are we taping the show where we can play back my soundbite?
No, it's just live.
Oh.
And we're beaming it into Fox Nation.
You know what? I have my VCR going at home.
Look at this. She went around and was shaking hands with the children and some of the service members. Pretty touching to see.
And I was on the Bush 41 aircraft carrier, I was just reminded, and they have a life-size statue, I guess you would say, or mannequin of Bush 41 wearing a bomber jacket.
Very cool.
God, you just remembered.
I just did. Things just pop up in my head.
We've noticed.
At one point, she was wearing a 41 cap on board. George Herbert Walker.
She did a great, by all accounts, the Bush 41 family and the Bush family was just so impressed with the tour and the effort that she made to make sure the Bush felt welcome from the Blair House to the White House 2 weeks ago.
Much appreciated by the Trumps, I am sure, and by
the red trees that she was criticized for. People are walking down. So many visitors come through the White House, and they're pulling off the berries and taking them home as souvenirs.
Is that true?
You're not allowed to do that.
They're going to wind
You're
up
not allowed to do that.
Those Christmas trees
Laura
are going to
Bush-
wind up looking like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
Right,
just threadbare.
exactly. No, Laura Bush, I read her book, and she talked about how people who visit, they take the printed linens or the napkins in the bathroom, and they'll shove them in their pocketbook, and they would have to
I took some of those during the Clinton administration.
See? Because it has the seal on it.
And Brian, it is true about people taking the berries because we had it in the 5 a.m. hour. Thank you for watching.
Really?
Thank you for watching,
Must be
Ainsley.
where I got the information.
You're caught. All right, let's get you caught up on your headlines, starting with this. And this is new overnight. A miracle on the coal mine. 3 people trapped for 4 days, rescued in West Virginia. Wow, look at that. The community cheering for the survivors and getting emotional over the good news.
And he had tears in his eyes, and he had a big smile on his face. We knew it was okay, and he held up 3 fingers that he had 3 survivors.
A 4th person escaped on Monday and helped rescuers find the others. They first entered the abandoned mine to find copper. There's a new proposal to build a recreational pot shop right next to a rehab clinic. The father and son duo behind the idea making their pitch at a city council meeting in Boston. Neighbors are torn over the issue.
People like me need you guys here because instead of taking all these pills for my anxiety and my bipolar, I'd rather smoke weed.
You don't put an abortion clinic next to a Catholic church, and you don't put a cannabis facility next to a rehabilitation clinic.
Massachusetts started allowing legal marijuana sales last month. This giant cross in Missouri will stay lit for Christmas, at least for now. The decision comes after the city of Ozark received a complaint from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. The nonprofit group wants to take it down, claiming it's unconstitutional. The city is now weighing its options and looking into the decoration's legality. All right, here is a serious question. Could you give up your smartphone for an entire year? Vitamin Water wants to pay someone $100,000 to do just that. To enter the contest, you must explain why you're up for the challenge on Instagram or Twitter. If you're selected, the company will give you an older model cell phone that can only make calls. It's unclear exactly how they will monitor the contest, but lie detector tests are involved. I don't know. I don't think I could give it up for a day.
Well, the thing is, everyone who knows you would probably hate it the most. They couldn't get a hold of you. They'd have to write you long letters. Dear Jillian, having a party at my house tomorrow.
Brian, it's a phone. They're supposed to be talked on.
I know.
But now nobody uses it to talk on. We just wanted to send text messages.
I know, but we love them, don't we?
It's so much easier to text. It is so much easier to text than you're not on the phone for 20 minutes.
Listen, somebody's going to get the $100,000. We got to talk to him.
Email us and tell us what you think.
Janice Dean, the weather machine, joins us. Janice, I understand there could be a little snow to the north and the west of us
Yes,
today.
you would be correct. I think you used to do weather back in the day,
I
right,
remember
Steve
that.
Ducey?
Back in the olden days.
Back in the olden days. It was only about 5 years ago. Let's, you know what? Hi, how are you? What are your names? Where are you from?
Kristen from Nashville, Tennessee.
And Michael, we're both from Nashville, Franklin.
Franklin.
Yeah.
If I were to go to Franklin, what is the, what's exciting about Franklin, Tennessee?
Just the #1 small town in America. Just go downtown, just almost a little more people, but kind of Mayberry-ish. Everybody loves you.
Fantastic. Would I be able to stay with you if I come?
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Steve was just there, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, if Steve Ducey goes, then I am there. Let's take a look at the maps. It is cool outside, and yes, we could see a little bit of snow flurry activity south of us. It's 33 in New York, 43 in Kansas City. We've got this big old storm that's going to start up today and last through Friday and Saturday across the Rockies and then the southern plains. Mainly a rain event across the Gulf Coast, but look at those wind gusts in excess of 60 miles per hour. So it's going to be a big storm system. We are going to see some snow out of this across portions of central Texas. So just be aware, Abilene and Waco and San Angelo. We could see some snow and then the potential for severe storms as well. You want to say hi to quickly anybody at home?
Yeah, we have 3 daughters that are at home, and we have family in Arkansas.
Very nicely done. Wave to Steve Ainsley and Brian. Thank you for coming out so
That's
early in the
right.
morning.
My wife and I just were in Franklin, Tennessee. We were at a beautiful Walmart selling copies of the Happy Cookbook, which is a great stocking
It
stuffer.
is a great Christmas present.
It's got to be one big stocking.
Actually, I was going to say, I don't know if that'll fit in the
with
stocking.
a reinforced toe. Nobody
Put a bow
actually
around it and put it under the tree.
Nobody still puts the stocking stuffer stuff in the stocking.
Yes, they do.
Oh, yes,
really?
we
Yeah.
do.
We just
Of
put
course
it
we do.
underneath it.
Yeah, my Santa hits the stockings first.
So your stockings are empty after Santa comes? He just leaves everything down
We've had a
underneath
problem.
the stocking?
We have a problem with the stockings falling off, so we just kind of put them on the hearth, next to where Santa comes down, and he just puts
once
stuff
you
on
stuff them, once Santa stuffs them, then you have to put them on the ground.
All right, you're right.
Too
It's a
full.
terrible stocking stuffer. It's a great gift for Christmas.
Okay, it is 41 minutes after the top of the hour. Michael Cohen ripping into President Trump after being sentenced to 3 years in prison, saying that he went down a, quote, of a path of darkness. Judge Napolitano says there is one big takeaway from that hearing. He's up next to show us the light.
And one Democrat had something interesting to say about free speech.
I would love to be able to regulate the content of speech. The First Amendment prevents me from doing so.
Yeah, I'm saying it's too bad you ended up in the wrong country. There's just one thing standing in his way: the Constitution.
President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, sentenced to 3 years in prison for tax fraud, campaign finance violations, and lying to Congress.
Cohen ripping into his former boss, Donald Trump, claiming blind loyalty led him to a path of darkness to cover up Donald Trump's dirty deeds.
And he went on and on and on. Here to break it all down, Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, Michael Cohen got off easy. 3 years, it's pretty good. He's got to be happy about that. What do we learn?
Well, nobody is happy about going to jail.
He knew what he was looking
but it's a lot less time than the government wanted and a lot less time than we all thought he would get. Look, I've sentenced over 1,000 people in my career, and I've heard things defendants say. Sentencing today is essentially a mathematical function. You're checking boxes. You're complying with guidelines. Obviously, there's some room for deviation, and Judge Pauly, the judge in this case, gave Michael Cohen a substantial benefit. It's interesting. Remember, he was prosecuted by
cooperation?
Correct. He was prosecuted by 2 offices. He was prosecuted by the special counsel in D.C. They wanted him to get no jail time. And he was prosecuted by the U.S. attorneys here in New York. They wanted him to get 4 years. Judge Pauly gave him 3. But a very, very telling statement came out of the judge's mouth yesterday after he read all the documents and heard all the arguments from the government, prosecutors in D.C., prosecutors in New York, Michael Cohen and his lawyers. And that was about the president. The judge finding that the president ordered and paid for Michael Cohen to commit a crime. That is very telling.
What crime?
The intentional deception and failure to report campaign payments.
But Donald Trump has said that was not a campaign violation because it wasn't involving the campaign. It was a damage control payment.
Unfortunately, the president wasn't in the courtroom, and the people who were, the federal prosecutors who had a statement from David Pecker, the guy that owns the National Enquirer, said it was for the campaign. The prosecutor said it was for the campaign. Michael Cohen said it was for the campaign. The president wasn't there. Maybe he should have had lawyers there. So if you make an honest mistake in failing to report something, or if you take $100,000 and you're only supposed to take $2,500, you can correct that by returning the money, paying a fine, and correcting the report. If you do this as part of a scheme to hide it, then it's not a civil wrong, then it's a crime. That's what the judge found yesterday.
Well, if, like, for example, Reverend Wright is speaking out, making President Obama, candidate Obama, look bad, and someone walks up to Reverend Wright and says, hey, could you stop making the president, the senator look bad? He's running for president. But what does that have to do with the campaign? But yet it is that might influence how I vote.
That would not be a campaign.
So this is no difference. This is a negative story the president went out because he's running for president.
I understand the president's argument. Unfortunately, the court and the prosecutors who work for the president disagree with him.
Yeah, but they went after John Edwards for essentially the same idea because there was money paid to a woman who he had an affair with and had a child. That went to court, that went to trial, and he was found not guilty.
The John Edwards case actually hurts the president because John Edwards' lawyers made a motion to dismiss the indictment saying it's not a crime. And the judge published an opinion saying why it's a crime. Now, the jury didn't believe the government and believed John Edwards. But the fact of the matter is any scheme to defraud the government by failing to report what must be reported is a crime, unless it's an honest mistake, in which case it's not a scheme.
Does he have to serve all 3 years?
No, he'll have to serve 85%. But if the Criminal Justice Reform Act that the president wants, that Democrats want, that Republicans want, from Cory Booker to Rand Paul, passes, 1/3 of his time will be removed, and he'll be out in about a year and 9 months.
All right, Judge, thank you very much.
Pleasure,
Available
guys.
to practice law again?
No, I doubt he'll ever practice law again.
Who would
Brian,
hire
some
him?
people say he never really practiced law.
I've heard that.
And he owes a lot of money in restitution, right?
He does.
A couple of million.
All right, Judge, thank you. 10 minutes before the top of the hour, the Christmas tree inside one police department paying tribute to our fallen officers with 149 blue ornaments, one for every hero who has died in the line of duty this year.
One too many. The project was made by the daughter of a fallen sergeant, and she's going to join us next. A Christmas tree in Missouri and a police department there getting a lot of attention this holiday season. It is 149 ornaments that are paying tribute to the local heroes who died in the line of duty. And the woman behind this project spent more than a year putting it together. Cindy Shaw is the daughter of fallen officer Jay Noser, and she joins us now. Good morning to you, Cindy. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tell us about the tree and why you decided to do this.
We decided to do it. My dad was an officer with the Florissant Police Department for almost 20 years, and he died of his injuries. And I just thought it would be a nice tribute to all the officers and their families who have fallen.
Those are all the officers that have fallen in that police department over the years?
Not just this department, in Missouri.
Wow. You know, one too many.
Actually 13 counties.
It's a beautiful tribute, but it's so sad to see the ornaments because we know that they're up there because a man or a woman who has given their life for that state, for this country, is not coming home for Christmas.
It's a very sad tree. This tree belongs to the 149 families.
What's been the reaction of those family members?
All the comments I'm seeing, everybody really appreciates it. A lot of people have come up to take pictures of the ornaments or the tree.
So then you and your husband have worked on this for the last year, right?
We have.
Will you continue this tradition? What will you do with the ornaments after Christmas?
They belong to the city of Florissant. My dad worked here. A piece of him is here. This tree belongs to them, for the people on this tree.
And you made an ornament for your dad?
I did. I have it right here. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, that's a sweet tribute. Tell us about your dad. What happened to him?
My dad was a police officer, a detective. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, June of '79, and a call came out for a bank robbery. And him and his partner split up. The partner went to the bank to get description of the car and the robber. My dad headed to Illinois, which is very close to us, to see maybe if he was going to try to get out of the state. My dad came across a car that matched the description that dispatchers had put out, and as he turned onto Highway 367, he did his traffic stop. and the man came out firing and hit him 4 times. And Dad fell over in the car, and the man came up to the window, knocked the driver's window out, stuck his arm in the car and shot him 4 more times.
Wow. Cindy, I know 3 out of your 4 siblings are in law enforcement. Thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for putting up the tree, so we'll never forget. More Fox and Friends
Thank you
coming
so
up.
much.
God bless you.
When you have